During the manic era that was COVID-19, there was one often repeated claim that spread everywhere, and that was the allegation that China either accidentally or deliberately released the COVID-19 virus from one of their viral facilities. However, this entire claim of China's either evil or incompetence has never really been met with any substance. And now it appears even the U.S. government agrees. Now, according to U.S. intelligence agencies, there is no evidence that the COVID-19 pandemic originated from China's Wuhan Institute of Virology. This, according to a report declassified last Friday. They added the caveat, however, that they were unable to determine the exact origin of the virus, which means in the end, they weren't actually able to completely rule out the possibility that it came from a Chinese lab. A 4-page report was filed with the Office of the Director of National Intelligence. It said that they had carried out extensive work with the Wuhan Institute to identify the source of the virus. Together, the two agencies had failed to find evidence of a specific incident that could have caused the outbreak. The report said the Central Intelligence Agency and other agencies remain unable to determine the precise origin of the COVID-19 pandemic. Both natural and lab hypotheses rely on significant assumptions or face challenges with conflicting reporting. We continue to have no indication that the WIV's pre-pandemic research holding included SARS-CoV-2 or a close progenitor, nor any direct evidence that a specific research-related incident occurred involving WIV personnel before the pandemic that could have caused the COVID-19 pandemic. This has all been released after U.S. President Joe Biden in March signed a bill declassifying information related to the origins of the pandemic. This contradicts a classified intelligence report that was leaked to the Wall Street Journal in February. That report from the Energy Department had low confidence in their assessment that the virus came from a Chinese laboratory. Meanwhile, the FBI had assessed the pandemic, which most likely arose from a Chinese laboratory leak. That was made public February 28th by FBI Director Christopher Wray. Most famously, the claim that the virus came from a Chinese lab was by then U.S. President Donald Trump.
This virus and others came from China's secrecy, deceptions, and cover-up allowed it to spread all over the world, 189 countries. And China must be held fully accountable.
Now, his actions led to a great deal of xenophobia against Asians inside the country. It's purely nonsensical that you would actually blame Chinese people or Asian people in general for something that there's no evidence that China even did. But this is the kind of thing that we do see in the United States. Whenever there's an outbreak of something, it's always either it doesn't exist and the government's just trying to scare us, or it must be the fault of some person of color, either an immigrant or one of the ones that we're having wars or some kind of conflict with at the time. And that's what we saw. And not even just from American society. We saw it in Canada too. We saw it across Europe. We saw it in many of the developed nations, or the first world countries, which saw fit to essentially tackle this kind of situation with xenophobia. But what was interesting was that many of those people at the same time also claimed COVID didn't exist. So it's very interesting how you have that complete doublespeak from those same people. And yes, it was there. There were many people who blamed Asians for it, but also said that the government invented it and to spread it for population control. And then another section say it doesn't exist at all. It's just a regular flu that they're trying to scare us with. It's like all those previous ones, like the swine flu and whatnot, that were intended to scare us. Of course, those were pandemics, and they were handled as best we could. So, I mean, it's just, it never ceases to amaze me. But this should settle it right now. There is no evidence China leaked this, whether deliberately or purposefully. This is a baseless claim. Now, you know me, I'm not a fan of modern day China. However, fair is fair. If there is no evidence that China did this deliberately or accidentally, then there it is. The idea that it was done deliberately is completely insane, considering how much their economy actually suffered. They lost hundreds of billions of dollars. They lost probably more lives to COVID than we're ever going to know. Not to mention all of the videos that came out of the overloaded hospitals, the then heavy crackdowns in order to stop the spread, which actually was a good thing to do, and is actually somewhat similar to measures that the Soviet Union did take when there were outbreaks of this kind. But there's no evidence that they had done this deliberately. So we can stop screaming scary Asian people trying to take us over. And for the most part, attacks against Asians, racially motivated attacks, have ceased. This is not really a thing anymore. I mean, the racially motivated attacks on Asians isn't really all that common anymore with regards to COVID, but they do still happen in very small, isolated incidences. So, once again, we learn not only did Donald Trump lie, which he did continuously, there was no reason anybody could substantially believe that it came from a lab, either accidentally or deliberately, because there was no evidence of that. Anything to the contrary is merely an opinion, not fact. And this coming out is a very good way to finally settle this dispute once and for all. If the US government, the mortal enemy of China, is willing to say, yeah, there's no evidence that they leaked this deliberately or accidentally, then that should be enough for most people. Reporting from Niagara Falls, Jason Unruhe, MRN. Thank you for watching. If you like this program, then please head over to my Patreon page and set up a monthly donation. It's your donations that keep this program running. Also, if you would like, please rate, comment, subscribe, and share in various social media.